Hey ladies, welcome or welcome back to my channel. How you doing? Hope you're having a pretty good week so far. So I wanted to bring up the topic of good girl syndrome, right? So we all know um that's just a horrible type of mentality to have, right? Being raised from a young age to be obedient while neglecting your own feelings, you become completely disconnected from what you want and what you like. You grow up with no identity of your own. Being a good girl is so dangerous to a woman on so many levels. Being a good girl causes you to stay in abusive relationships because you want to show to that man or that friend who constantly treats you like crap that you are a good girl and you are worth being with, you are worth having in their lives. Because if you don't have their validation, who are you? Being a good girl causes you to get emotionally manipulated and spiritually manipulated, right? So I wanted to touch up on that, and I have a few stitches I want to share with you guys. So let's go ahead and get started.
So it turns out being a good girl really just means learning to neglect yourself from an early age so that you can manage other people's emotions that they don't know how to manage on their own. And as a result, you become completely disconnected from what you want and what you like so you can be completely attuned to what they want and what they like so that they can be happy, you can keep the peace, all as a means for you to feel safe. I don't think I
The
want
good
that.
girl's mindset problems and mental blocks always circle back to her patriarchal conditioning. Her mind is her worst enemy, urging her to center men at home, in workplace, even when running her own business, to see men as better, more competent, more capable, with stronger leadership. While she unconsciously keeps uplifting men, she does harm to herself and to other women around her, devaluing herself and not giving other women enough credit, continuing the sick cycle of inequality, while being completely unaware of how she's contributing to devaluing herself and other women around her. She will give men many, many chances. She holds herself back from keeping them accountable because deep inside she does not feel good enough. She constantly has the same phrase following her around everywhere. Who do you think you are? She has internalized male gaze, telling her that she's never competent, smart, or respectable enough to truly take her career and her business to the next level. To become a bad bitch, exercise the good girl within.
For most of us, the emotional manipulation started from a very young age by our own parents, our very first bullies. They've convinced you that you needed to audition for their love, and they emotionally manipulated you in order to get what they wanted. So, in return, you end up auditioning in your relationships and get emotionally manipulated in your relationship. So, let's take a look at the next video.
You are such a good little girl. I know. You never rock the boat. You're so agreeable and you're always making everyone around you happy. That's my good little girl.
I am. And I managed to do it all because I completely abandoned myself and my own needs in the process. I've learned that the most important thing is to be liked by people, rather than to actually know myself or to even like myself.
You're already understanding life at such a young age, unlike your sister, who says what she feels or who makes things difficult for me all the time. Good luck trying to find a husband with that attitude.
My sister has adapted in a different way to this environment. Because our emotional needs aren't met here, she's overly focused on how she feels and overly focused on speaking her mind. This is a way of coping in a home where people don't actually notice or empathize with your emotions. She's trying desperately to be seen or heard, but you don't really understand this. You just call her difficult. And honestly, she's really starting to believe it.
You're just the perfect child. If only all children were as easy as you.
I sure am! And in 25 years, I'm going to find myself completely depressed, confused, and disconnected from how I actually feel. Because I spent my entire life putting everyone else first and having no boundaries, I'll be very resentful and wonder why all my relationships feel so dysfunctional and unfulfilling. I'll take on everyone else's problems. I'll be everyone else's support system and will feel like I'm not getting the same thing in return. And instead of seeing that my good girl conditioning comes from being raised within a dysfunctional environment, I'll just blame myself for how I feel because no one taught me that my feelings, my needs, or my opinions matter.
Instead of taking time to heal, instead of taking time to work on yourself, instead of taking time to love yourself and validate yourself, you decide to pop out a child, to either get unconditional love or to keep a man. Because there was never any pure attention behind having that child, when that child starts to turn into an actual human being in your eyes with their own feelings and emotions, you start to manipulate them. Myself, as a child free person, that decision came from a very unselfish place, contrary to what a lot of parents like to say to child free people. They like to call us selfish. Because I don't want to pass on a lot of my own shit to my child, that came from a very unselfish place. But you know what is selfish? Instead of getting a job, going to school, building wealth, loving yourself, you decide to pop out a child instead. With your low IQ and pick me syndrome, you decide to have a baby. Let's move on.
I was the biggest disappointment to my family and everybody around me when I got divorced 12 years ago. It was a relationship that barely lasted a couple of years. At the time, I didn't understand what the term trauma bonding meant. I truly thought it was love. I waited to leave until my son had his 4th birthday. I didn't want to ruin it for him. When I escaped the relationship, my youngest was 9 months old. I strapped her on my back with a baby carrier. Tears were streaming down my face. I hated myself so much for putting my kids through this. I was so determined to be independent and become successful in my career, but no matter what I did, I struggled beyond initial success. I had such big dreams. I wanted to make a lot of money and be really significant and visible. But my reality did not match my dreams at all. People around me told me to settle for what I have. I should be happy. I never realized it was my good girl programming and the environment that enforced the programming that held me down where I was. I learned, excelled, and grew in every environment I landed, and this was the beginning of my bad bitch journey. Go to the free Social Elegance presentation by clicking on the link because I want to share with you how you can play to win too.
Traumatized woman raises traumatized children. And those traumatized children become pick-me's and good girls, trying to get validation from men with no sense of self and identity. The church is hoping that your mother has done that job already. Because if your mother didn't, now they have to break you down and turn you into a good girl. That's the only way for them to break you down. That's the only way for you to allow a man to manipulate you emotionally and spiritually and even physically. They need you at your lowest. They don't want you to love yourself. They don't want you to heal your traumas. They actually want you to believe you can pray it all away instead of seeking professional help. They want you to believe you can pray the cheating away. You can pray your traumas away. They're not going to teach you to love yourself. They want you to forgive all the people that did you wrong instead of working through it. Just forget about it. Just pray for them. But not working through those emotions and making sure that you don't bleed all those issues and traumas into your children.
10 signs you suffer from good girl syndrome. Overcompliance, always saying yes to others' requests, often at the expense of your own needs. Perfectionism, striving for flawlessness and setting excessively high performance standards. Fear of conflict, avoiding disagreements to keep the peace even when your own interests are at stake. Seeking approval, constantly needing validation from others to feel worthy. Self-neglect, putting everyone else's needs before your own, to the point of neglecting self-care. Difficulty expressing opinions, hesitantly to share your thoughts or feelings in fear of disapproval. Guilt for setting boundaries. Feeling guilty when attempting to set personal boundaries. apologizing unnecessarily, saying sorry even when you haven't done anything wrong, low self-esteem, believing you're not good enough unless you are accommodating others, neglecting your desires, ignoring your own dreams and desires to fit the expectations of others. Breaking free from the good girl syndrome involves recognizing these patterns, affirming your self-worth, and practicing assertiveness and boundary setting. And yes, working holistically on healing your underlying emotional traumas is extremely
Good girl
important.
syndrome is deeply ingrained into women everywhere to keep us controllable, and it's time to break out of it. Feeling guilty when you prioritize yourself, hiding your true feelings to avoid conflict and keep harmony for everyone else, prioritizing other people's needs over your own, which having a fear of disappointing others, and having a need for perfection. How the F do we stop this from keeping us from our potential? Well, step number 1 is to realize that being disliked grants us so much freedom. Every single time you're disliked by someone, your own time is saved because now you know they weren't meant for you and you can better find who aligns to you. 2, you need to realize that people pleasing is actually rooted in pride, not politeness. You want to be accepted and liked, and most importantly, control what other people perceive you as. You think you're helping people, but really the root cause of this is just seeking out more validation and praise. Because by filling your own cup first and focusing on your own fulfillment, you can better serve others afterwards. 3, take some time to think about or journal what your actual standards and values are rather than blindly following what society has told you you need to be. Finally, and most importantly, understand what is driving these good girl behaviors. Is it because your family isn't affectionate? Is it because you feel rejected in friendship or dating? Is it because you don't feel good enough? Whatever it is, identifying the root cause will finally allow you to build up your self-esteem and confidence in a good way and break out of these habits that are serving others at the expense of your own well-being and happiness. And if you need tips on confidence and self-love, I have an entire YouTube channel with hundreds of videos teaching you how to
Good
do
girls don't make history. You know what I mean? Old girls make history. Bold people make history. So if you want to be the lead actor of your movie, which is your life, you've got to take choices that might be contrary to what you've heard. And that empowerment may or may not come from your parents, may or may not come from your family or boyfriend or whoever you're around. It comes from you.
No one can fuck with you when you're honest with yourself. What can you possibly say to me to intimidate me or make me afraid that I don't already know about myself? You think I'm crazy? Cool, I think I'm crazy too. You think I'm aggressive? Yeah, I know I can be aggressive. You think I'm a little annoying? Yeah, I know that about myself. Like when you're real with yourself about everything, even like I resist drinking water, it's like you're not insecure anymore. You're not insecure anymore because you own it. So I'm not walking in like, what does Ajit think about me? I don't care what you think about me. I know what I think about me. And what I think about me matters more. And the way we learn to think highly of ourselves, it has nothing to do with perfection. It has to do with being honest with yourself. You respect yourself when you are brutally honest with yourself. Like so honest to the point that it hurts, but you're willing to hold that and still be good to yourself. Don't beat yourself up with that awareness. That's not what you do with awareness. You don't get aware about yourself and honest and then beat yourself up with the truth. You say, I go, okay, great. I have resistance around getting on camera. I have resistance around, moving my body every day. Okay, great. Here's where I'm at. What do I want? Okay, great. What's the next step? What's one thing that I can do easy, small, that I can just begin the first step? It's such a beautiful process of being real with where you're at, not beating yourself up over it, getting clear and committed on what the heck you actually do want, and then take the action.
If you don't want the change, if you're not ready, unfortunately, it's not going to happen. I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you so much for making it this far. I hope you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.